Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of the Lion's Den, and today we're going to be giving a preview and prediction video of the Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou fight that's happening this weekend at the Riyadhseason. So at the end of the video I'm going to give you guys my prediction on who I think is going to win the fight, but I'm going to make a quick case for both fighters and their sort of keys to victory and how they can both win the fight. Now, I'm only going to be going off of their recent fights. So for Ngannou, I'm going to go off the Fury fight, and for AJ, I'm going to go off the Otto Wallin fight. Now, AJ looked good against Otto Wallin. I thought he boxed well. He looked like an improved version of himself. He used his jab very well, and I think his jab is going to be a massive key to winning this fight. I think he's going to have to stick on the outside, use his jab well, use his footwork, and try not to engage in sort of any sort of brawls. Try to avoid the clinch work as well with Francis Ngannou, because Ngannou showed against Tyson Fury that, you know, he's the more dominant man in the clinch. Regardless of the size of these individuals, the strength advantage that Francis Ngannou has due to his MMA background is you know, far beyond that of what AJ or Fury could bring to a boxing ring. So for AJ, I think he's got to really stick behind the jab and just try and set up a massive overhand right. Even going to the body as well should hopefully pay dividends later on in the fight. You know, Francis Ngannou has shown that he's not got the best gas tank in the world, and he can fatigue over time, and obviously it's due to the amount of muscle the man carries naturally. But I think AJ should be able to exploit that if he boxes well and comes in with a good game plan. Again, the jab is going to be key to this fight, to slowing Ngannou down and to setting up the big power shots of Anthony Joshua. The one thing AJ has to be overly cautious about in this fight is to not overexert himself and not get too aggressive against Francis Ngannou, because AJ has shown in the past to sort of lose his head a little bit. When he starts to find success, he can get a bit sloppy and start to like rush in and get overly aggressive. And I think this is where he can get timed by Francis Ngannou and maybe caught with a punch that's going to put his lights out. So he really does have to do a very good job of keeping himself measured, level-headed, and just stay disciplined. Stick to a solid game plan. I know he's got a good team behind him, so I'm sure they'll come up with a great game plan, but he has to stay disciplined and box perfect for the entire fight, really. I think in the later rounds, again, if Ngannou tires, he should be okay, but definitely in those early rounds, he has to be perfect. He can't afford to get into any sort of brawls, and his timing has to be on point. Now, for Ngannou, I really think that Ngannou has a lot more of a chance than people are giving him credit for. I think people give him more credit this time than they did against Fury. I mean, obviously going into the Fury fight, nobody thought he was going to win. Like, everyone thought it was just going to be a complete whitewash. Fury would just box the head off him, and, you know, it's just a complete mismatch. But I think Francis has shown the world now that he can hold his own in a boxing ring, and that if you're going to step in there, you're in for a fight. Do you know what I mean? It's not just going to be a walk in the park and a little sparring match for the other opponent or for the opposition. But for me, Francis, he does have a good chance in this. You know, I really am giving him a good chance. I think he has impeccable timing. This is something that I think slips under the radar a lot with Francis Ngannou, because everyone's so focused on his power. Yes, he packs immense power. A lot of heavyweights do. But in order to knock people out, it's not so much about the power, it's the timing of which you're landing your punches and the precision. And Francis Ngannou has impeccable timing. Like, he has shown this over and over again in the smaller gloves in MMA. And he also showed it against Tyson Fury as well when he knocked him down. The timing for that check left hook that he landed was pitch perfect. Now, I think AJ is susceptible to be caught with punches like this, and I think they would have studied their footage going in, and they'll be aware that they need to be in and out quick. But Francis Ngannou definitely has a chance. If he can time AJ coming in, he definitely has a chance to catch him with something. I think Ngannou is going to need to keep his punches straight for the most part, because he does have a tendency to throw a lot of looping punches, and I think AJ has a great 1-2. So if Francis Ngannou is going to be throwing a lot of looping punches, it's not gonna bode well for him over the course of the fight, I don't think. So for Francis Ngannou, I'd like to see him use a few more straight punches, use his jab well, and just not overexert himself and throw too many looping punches in the early stages of the fight. Again, though, I think if he can time the shots well, and if he can get some reads on AJ and his movement and time it, that left hook that we've seen him time Fury with, I honestly think he can put AJ's lights out pretty early on in the fight if he lands. Is he going to land? That's going to depend on how AJ comes into the fight, what kind of game plan he comes in with. Who knows what version of Francis is going to show up as well. Francis might turn up and just be a complete different, show a complete different style that we didn't see in the first fight against Fury. So, that's another thing. That's another sort of unknown going into this fight. Like, we've only seen one boxing match with Francis Ngannou, and I don't think that's enough to really be like, okay, so I've got a stamp on how this guy boxes. You know what I mean? He can make so many changes. Of course, he's going to have his natural tendencies, but the element of surprise, man, who knows? I really feel like Ngannou and his team are going to come in with a very interesting game plan and throw a lot of people off guard. But yeah, I think Ngannou needs to be very efficient with his energy as well. If he gasses himself out early, I don't think he's going to get the rests and breaks that Tyson Fury gave him in that first fight. I think he obviously caught Fury off guard when he was switching stances and stuff. And this fight, I think the AJ team would have prepared for that. So I don't think he's going to get those moments to rest like he said he did when he switched southpaw last time. So he's definitely going to have to be a lot more measured with his punches and be a lot more efficient with his energy. If Francis Ngannou can, make the fight dirty, clinch up with AJ, rough him up a bit in the early rounds, make the fight awkward for him, and then time him with something, I do think he has a chance to win this fight. I think AJ should win on paper, but my prediction for this fight is going to be that Anthony Joshua gets KO'd by Francis Ngannou inside 4 rounds. 3rd or 4th round, I think he's going to catch him with something. It's got to be while Ngannou's fresh, because I think in the later rounds, his power might fall off slightly and he's going to slow down a bit. I don't think it's going to be... I think it will end up being like a decision if it goes to the later rounds. I don't think AJ's knocking Ngannou out. I don't see it happening. But I think if Ngannou's to win, it's going to be in the early rounds, and I'm predicting a 4th round knockout for Le Predator Francis Ngannou. So look out for my next video that's going to be dropping tomorrow, where I'll be previewing UFC 299 and giving you guys my predictions on that fight card coming up. Big weekend of fights, big weekend of sports if you're a football fan as well. So yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Like, comment and subscribe, share with your friends. Thank you for watching.